5 seconds to go. Start. Further, the journey of a person with disability to apply for the NEET examination and thereafter pursue medicine at the college must also comply with accessibility norms. The application portal for NEET examination must outline the accessibility compliances of different colleges to enable prospective students with disabilities in making an informed decision. Once admitted, the enabling units established under the directions of the University Grants Commission must act as a point of contact for persons with disabilities to access clinical accommodations. Students must be informed about the enabling units and equal opportunity cells through the information booklet circulated for new MBBS students, the college website, and the Equal Opportunity Policy under Section 21 of RPWD Act. The second respondent must make appropriate directions in this regard. In the UK, the General Medical Council, which regulates medical education, has issued an advisory guidelines titled Welcome and Valued. The guidance outlines how institutions can comply with their duties to afford reasonable accommodation to disabled medical students. The guidance inter alia lists the steps for supporting medical students. After addressing student requirements and agreeing on a sport action plan, the guidance outlines the following steps which are indicative and may not be appropriate for all: forming a sport group or a lead to deal with sport arrangements of incoming students with disabilities, identifying key persons of contact with students with disabilities and for each of the services involved in exploring the sport arrangements, informing students on how their information will be used in compliance with confidentiality. Colleges are further recommended to keep a clear audit trail of decision making for supporting disabled learners, as this is likely to help schools make sure they have taken appropriate steps to provide reasonable adjustments. Keep a record of all conversations between the support group and student. Agree on the method of recording such conversations and allow the student to see a draft record of any discussions. Create a separate file with different access arrangements for confidential information related to health outside of the general student record. The lead must thereafter organize a meeting between the student and the support group. The group may also arrange meetings to evaluate cases and discuss progress, and lastly, a decision may be made on whether the student with disability can be provided adequate support to enable them in meeting the outcomes desirable in a medical graduate. The provision of an audit trail to assess whether a given accommodation required by a student with disability places an undue burden on the institution is a vital safeguard for transparency and fairness. Dr. Satendra Singh, in his report dated 20th October 2024, has made suggestions to rename the disability assessment boards as ability assessment boards to align them better with their intended purpose. Include a doctor with disability or who is well conversant with disability rights in such boards. Use a human rights model of disability for assessment. Issue guidance on clinical accommodations. Train the boards in carrying out the disability competency assessment and use the enabling units to serve as a contact point for clinical accommodations. As far as the inclusion of doctors with disabilities in the disability assessment boards is concerned, the first respondent has issued a circular on 24th March 2022 mandating such inclusion. This direction shall be complied with by all boards. The second respondent had submitted that, in light of the judgment of this court in Omkar Gond Supra, it will be constituting a new committee of domain experts to comply with the directions in that judgment. We note the assurance of the second respondent and direct that this committee shall include persons with disability or one or more experts who are well conversant with disability rights. The committee shall recommend fresh guidelines to replace the existing guidelines. The above suggestions shall be duly considered by the government on its own merits. The recommendations so formulated shall comply with this judgment. Our conclusions in light of this case are formulated in the following terms. The impugned judgment of the Nagpur bench of the High Court of Judicature at Bombay is set aside, and the report of the Disability Assessment Board of AIMS Nagpur dated 13th August 2024 is quashed for failing to apply the statutory and regulatory standards applicable to the assessment of a person with disability. A supernumerary seat shall be created at the AIMS Nagpur, and the seat shall be allocated to the appellant provided that he has not already secured a seat at a college of his choosing. The college shall be given the report dated 20th October 2024, which makes suggestions as to the accommodations which may be extended to the appellant to successfully pursue the MBBS course. The appellant shall be protected from victimization. The judgment shall apply in rem. We further conclude as follows. The second respondent shall issue fresh guidelines for admitting persons with disabilities into medical courses. The committee formulating the guidelines must include experts with disability or persons who have worked on disability justice. The guidelines shall comply with the judgments of this court and contemporary advancements in disability justice. The disability assessment boards shall eschew from a benchmark model to test the functional competence of medical aspirants with disability. The second respondent shall issue appropriate guidelines in this regard. The disability assessment boards shall include a doctor or health professional with disability as per the directions of the first respondent dated 24th March 2022. The conduct of the disability assessment boards shall be fair, transparent, and in compliance with principles of the rule of law. Attention must be paid to ensure that candidates appearing before the board do not feel uncomfortable on account of physical or attitudinal barriers. Reasonable accommodation is a gateway right to avail all other fundamental human and legal rights for persons with disabilities. Non-availability of reasonable accommodation amounts to discrimination and violates substantive equality of persons with disabilities. The inclusion of persons with disability in the medical profession would enhance the quality of health care and meet the preambular virtue of fraternity and the guarantees in Articles 21, 19, 14, and 15 of the Constitution. Applicants to the NEET examination must be informed about the compliance of accessibility norms and provisions of reasonable accommodation available at colleges. The respondents shall issue appropriate directions to create a database with relevant information on accessibility and reasonable accommodation, and enabling units at medical colleges shall act as points of contact for persons with disability desirous of accessing clinical accommodations. A copy of this judgment will be transmitted to the secretaries of all concerned ministries of the Government of India. The appeal is allowed in the above terms. Pending applications, if any, shall stand disposed of. Stop.